Welcome everyone. Today we're going to be going over how to create forms and surveys in Go High Level or My Broker Pro. And this is really important because forms and surveys are great ways to capture leads when you're working. When you're trying to get new leads online, let's say it's a Facebook ad and they go to a form, or you have a lead magnet, maybe a guide, you would want them to fill out a form in order to get the guide. So this is a good, basically, learning session so that this is kind of a great foundation for lead generation. So you can use it for almost anything, but today we're going to go over just the surveys and the forms. Okay, so to find these in My Broker Pro or Go High Level, you go to Sites. Rajiv, the previous ones are all on our YouTube if you're looking for them. So sometimes we have them on YouTube, sometimes we have them in a training area within My Broker Pro too. So reach out after and I can guide you that for sure. You're welcome. So if you go down to Sites here, you will see that there's a bunch of different kind of subfolders at the top here. So the ones we're going to be focusing today are forms and surveys. And the difference between a form and a survey, they're very similar in capturing your contacts details. However, a form will be, let's get an example here. Form will be in one viewpoint. So like this is a form, okay? And a survey, picture that more like an interactive where it has multiple pages, where you can also create conditional logic where you're okay, if they say they're a first-time home buyer, I want them to fill out extra information. So it's a little bit longer of a form that has multiple pages so that you don't have to have a form that's 26 feet long. So in order to do that, so again, this is an example of a form. So why it's very important, you can see that there's lots of forms on your website. There's lots of multi-page kind of forms, which we call surveys, to capture more lead information and kind of break it down more. So we'll start with a form. So you're going to go to Sites and you're going to go to Forms right here and you're going to go to Builder. Okay, you can see that if you have the Essentials plan with us, we have some pre-built ones already. However, it's really good to, hi Peter, really good to basically create your own and learn how to use this too. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do Add Form. And typically I start from scratch, okay? But just for today, I'm going to show you guys, you can start from other templates too. So you'd hit Continue. And you can see here there's a bunch of form templates essentially that you can pick from. There's finance areas, real estate, all sorts of different things. And just look at what it looks like, because you can change the colors and everything. You're not stuck with the colors. So if you're hey, I like the format of this one, like this Contact Us, but I want to change it to black, you can totally do that. So when you're looking at templates, I encourage you to always just look at the visual format and aesthetics of it so that you can change it after. This one's quite nice here too, this vacation survey one. But for today's purpose, so if you wanted that, you can click and you can get a bigger view of it. And then you just hit Continue and it would open up that survey for you, the template. Okay, but for today's purpose, I'm going to do one from scratch. It's typically what I do as well. So then once you hit Add Form and you start from scratch, the computer's just thinking, I guess. Second. Or did I not do it? There you go, Create. There you go. Must have done something there. You can see it opens up the form builder. Okay, so now you have all of your elements on the side, like anything that you want to capture, the form template here in the middle, edit, settings, submissions, your form name at the top here, which is really important, preview, integrate, save, and then there's some more style options here. We're going to go through them right now. As soon as I create a new form, the first thing I do is name it, because there's nothing worse than having a bunch of Form 11, Form 14, Form 13, and you got to click through all of them to figure out what it is that you were working on. So we can just do this one. We'll call it Test Tech Tips. Okay, so that I know I can delete it after. Once I name it, I typically save it so that I don't run into issues later. So now the form already has a couple key features: first name, last name, phone number, and email. I typically always recommend having these fields because if you're trying to capture somebody's information, these are very important, especially if you're using a CRM, because then you can automate responses after somebody submits a form to say like, oh, hi, Peter, thanks for inquiring on my website, so and so. But if you didn't have the first name, the automation wouldn't be able to pull that first name information, right? Some people will make it mandatory and make it mandatory to capture the email, and then they'll make it not mandatory to capture the phone. So it depends on like what you're trying to capture from your clients. So if you're looking to make fields mandatory, I would click on here, and then on this right-hand side, there's a little button here called required. I pretty much always make the first and the last name required. Like, I want to know who you are when you're messaging me. Phone, I typically make required, but some people don't. So you click on phone, and if you didn't want it to be required, you could disable that, okay? If you wanted email, I would suggest one of these is mandatory. Like if you have a form, you don't want somebody to just submit their first name and last name and no contact details, right? So one of the two I would say should be required, but you can obviously untoggle it here. And then these checkboxes are just kind of like compliance purposes. They're pretty standard. I mean, you can edit this a lot because every country has different rules. However, when you have somebody subscribing to somebody, let's just say they're filling out a form to have access to your newsletter, you have to give them the option to receive information from you, and also the opportunity to opt out in the future. So if you send them emails or text messages or anything like that, they have to understand that they can type stop and that they'll get what we call DND, do not disturb. So they'll get DND so that you can't message them in the future. In Go High Level, you have a couple options. They can get DND for text messages, but not email, depending what channel they told you to stop on. Okay, so you have to, by checking this box, they're acknowledging that you're going to be sending them information, and then they're going to be hitting submit. Okay, and then you have privacy policy and terms of service here, which should technically link to your website. So when it's a template, you have to configure that, which we'll go through in a sec here. But before we do that, what if you were like, hey, I want more information. I want to know if they're looking to buy a home or if they need a mortgage or whatever the case may be. So here we already have the name information. Here's date of birth, phone numbers, emails. Maybe we're going to skip that kind of stuff. We have a submit button already. We're not really selling products or collecting information. I would probably encourage you to have like a city or a province, depending on where you're working. So if you wanted to, you can drag and drop, and then this will put the city. And then this, because it's built in the States, will say states. But how you update this so it says province, you click on it, and then you just type in province, and then change this to province. Oops, if I could spell. Province. Okay, so now you can see it's changed. When we make changes like that, I encourage you to just hit the save, because sometimes if you work too long and then you go to hit save and there's an error, you're going to be really sad. So from here, you can ask them what company they work for. Here is a single line, which means where they can just type their answer. So if you wanted to be like, okay, a feedback form, perhaps, you can say here, you can go feedback. And then the user would actually, once this form is live, be able to type, okay? Multi-line just means it's much longer. So you can drag and drop this little button here and make it longer. So maybe you have a long feedback section or something like that. Then here you have text box list. So option 1, option 2, option 3, are you looking to purchase, sell, or refinance or rental? You can like make your options. So by clicking on here, you can go to options on this right-hand side, and you can actually put what the values are. So you can relabel them and put values there. I'm going to delete that for now. And then very similar with these next ones, these are choice elements, which just means the client's going to, decide on whatever you have in this drop-down menu. So if you do single drop-down and multi drop-down, to me are very similar. I'm actually not too sure of the difference, but single drop-down, essentially will, if the person clicks on the little arrow, will give them the options they could choose on. An example for that would be province. You could put BC, Alberta, all the other Ontario here. So by clicking on this, again, you can change the label. Let's just say we were going to change this to province. We already have one that says that. Yeah, that's fine. We'll just do this. And then you would put British Columbia. You can see how it's changing now. So when we have all those options, we're going to hit save. I'll show you guys what this looks like in the preview after as well. This will be rolled up to start, meaning the client won't see these options, but when they click on the drop-down menu, then they can choose, what product you're looking for, whatever the purpose of your survey is. The checkboxes are very similar. However, they're just not rolled. Oh, what did I do there? They're just not rolled up. So you could say here, you could have the exact same thing that says province, but when they go to use it, it's not going to roll up. It'll basically just say like option 1, 2, and 3. So for example, we use this when we're hiring, like how much experience do you have with Go High Level? And then it would say very little, a little bit, a lot. You can put more options and the client can choose, okay? And then radio buttons is very similar, just a different format. And then here, ratings, you can put your a rating here. So like, how did you rate your service working with Peter Fabry? Then they can put, the 1 to the 5-star there. We actually use this in a survey before we give clients our Google link, so that if they put less than a 4-star, you can have that opportunity to connect with them again. So you can do kind of, I'll show you how logic works after, where you say if they choose 4-star, make them give feedback on why they chose 4-star. And then the rest is really just kind of customizing it. So you could add text here. So this, you can put the title of your, title here. Up here, you can put HTML, which is just code. So if you wanted something to show up there, not super common in forms, to be honest. Source, terms and condition, a lot of that is already on here. Images, maybe you want to put this one's for them to image file upload. Okay, yeah, so this one, image on this side, is you uploading an image. So let's put this one I just had from last night. And then it puts that there. So let's just say this was the newsletter. And then this other one where it says file upload is more the client uploading a document. So they'll see your image because you added it there, but this file upload just essentially means like maybe you're asking for them to upload their mortgage statement because you're making a form for renewal reminders. So you're like, if you'd preferred, instead of adding all your mortgage details, you can just upload your mortgage statement here. So you can do that as well. So it's more customer facing for that one. I'm just going to get rid of this because it's really big. And then monetary and number value. So these are great for when you're trying to make, what is your mortgage amount or what's the purchase price you're looking to make? You can change that here. And what's nice in Go High Level with monetary and numbers is that you can now do math behind the scenes. It forces the client to use a number versus typing it out and making a mistake or putting a dollar sign when they shouldn't and that kind of stuff. So when you're doing like a lookup in some of your automation saying, okay, when the client fills out this form, if they put a mortgage amount in this section here, I'll just write mortgage amount here, and then I'll put purchase price. That way you, in the future, because most people just use forms when the person collects it, it sends you the information. But as you get more comfortable with automation, you can decide what happens after. So you could say, if they put a mortgage amount of above 500, I want this to happen. If they do under 250, I want this to happen. You can put them in certain spots in your CRM as well. So it's nice. It forces them to use basically a numeric, like a number. Date picker will let them, this is again, we were creating the other day, somebody wanted a renewal reminder for mortgages. So that's, we put here like pick, select, your renewal date. And then when they go to use it, which I'll show you the preview soon here, it essentially just opens up a calendar and they have to pick it. And then signature is always fun. If you're making them, maybe you're making a consent form or something like that, that will force them to, fill out a signature. So let's hit save. Before, actually, I'll show you guys a preview and then we'll talk about colors and stuff. So then if we click on this preview, we'll show you what your form looks like. So you can see now it's pretty plain Jane. I'm a big believer putting forms on a landing page on your website. So if you're creating a renewal reminder or a purchase, you know, something on your website, I don't think it should just go to the form. I think it should be on your website so that you get that click, okay? But today we're not going to go over that. So here you can see I put the title. Here you can see I can type in purchase price, but I can also use this to basically select a value, and I can put the mortgage amount here. And renewal date opens up that calendar. So maybe I'm not up for renewal until 2027, June 14th, first name, last name, phone number, email, city, province. This is the one where we said you could type it, but then we had the province where we had the select drop down, right? So it's totally up to you on what your preferred method is. This province is a kind of a native field to Go High Level, so it works great for contact information. But this drop down is another. We've used it in the past for, well, you can use it for almost anything, but for the past we've used it for provinces for like tax purposes and stuff too. Feedback here, you can see I can just type, and then signature will force me to, you know, put in a signature block. Okay, then I do check that I'm okay receiving information from you guys and submit. Well, I didn't fill out the ones that were required, right? So it's not going to actually submit. So I'll just close that, but I wanted to give you guys kind of a view of what that looks like. Okay, so now you're like, okay, I like my form. I'm ready to kind of put it on my website. Then from here, you're probably going to want to change some of the colors. White is always appealing, I think, on almost any website. But if you were looking to change the background color, you simply just click on the white part here, and you could go to colors and backgrounds here, and you can choose background color, input color, font color. You can also click on certain elements, and it will let you choose colors as well. So if you wanted to really rebrand this to make it your own, you can do that too. On our mortgage website, what I prefer, and even on my Broker Pro websites, I really like black backgrounds. So sometimes I find the white forms stick out a little bit too much for me. So if you have more of a modern website like that, typically what I do is I take this background color and I actually just make it transparent. So this is transparency at the bottom. And you can see it kind of like morphed into different color, like a clear color. So then from there, I know that it's going to match my whatever's behind it, which in my case is typically black, right? You can see this title still white. So I would want to click here, background, and make it transparent as well. So it takes a bit of configuration, but once you have one form that you're happy with, you've gone through and you've changed the inputs and the colors, and you click on this submit button, you can change the color here as well. So if you're like, I don't really like green, I prefer, you know, maybe gray or something like that. You can also change what the button theme is. You can change what the button says. Like you can really configure everything from beginning to end here, right? You know, this privacy policy was white, so I'd probably take the background and make it transparent again. So now let's say I'm happy with this one. The last thing I would do, I would always test my form, preview it, make sure I'm happy with everything, all that kind of stuff. But then there's this hidden little bell over here on this left-hand side. And this is the easiest way. Even if you have it tied to automations, I always recommend that you click this little bell and do email notification, and then relabel it tests, tech tips, whatever your form's going to be called, and email to. I typically, in my case, I'll put our client's information there, or like mine. If it's on my own website, I would put Sarah at mybrokerpro.ca. So for example, when you guys sign up for tech tips, or when you guys sign up for anything on my website, even though it's tied to automations, I personally like getting an email saying, hey, somebody just filled out this form, essentially. And then I leave it at that. I don't turn on the autoresponder because we typically have automations. Like if this form triggers, an email would be sent to the client, that kind of stuff. So usually I just hit save. But to me, that's a little safeguard. You know, the client came in, the lead's in your system now. So then, is it saving? Is it thinking? Then I would go back. So now you'll be able to see my test one here. Oh, of course it didn't save, did it? Anyways. Oh yeah, there it is. So test the tech tips here. If now that you have one that you're really happy with the format, now you would go here and you just go duplicate. And then you can use that format over and over and over again. So if you put some time into one form, make it generic, make it blank, make the colors the way you want it, make the heading, that kind of stuff, and then call it your template form, and you can just use it over and over and over again. Okay. So now, as you guys noticed with the form, if we preview it, starting to get a little long. In the world of leads, a long form just means like less conversion. Okay. The longer somebody sees the form, they go, oh my goodness, I got to send out all this information, the higher likelihood they are to like not fill it out. So in that case, I usually suggest a survey. And what that does is allows you to, let's go to the website one here. I don't know if any of these are live. Yeah, so anyway, we'll just make a new one here. Okay, so then a survey will essentially break that into chunks. So instead of being one long form, you can make like 4 short pages, let's say. So here, let's go add survey. Again, you can go through the templates if you wish, but I would encourage you just to make one that you like your style, and then you'll be able to duplicate that in the future. So then I'll do start from scratch, create. And from here, again, we would do the same. I'm not going to go through all the motions again, but you would name your survey, you would save it. And then I consider the bell, adding yourself to notifications, very important. And then now you're going to start building your survey. So picture this being, well, I'll show you guys the renewal reminder from True North Mortgage that we were kind of working with the other day. This is what I envision to be a good use case of a survey and a lead magnet as well. So you can see here they have a button. In my case, what I would just put the survey start there. So they can do get started because they're using a different software. You could see one page, the client's inputting the details. Next page, they're putting in their name. The next page, they're putting their phone number. So it's a little bit more interactive, and it's also, I don't know why, it just feels like less intimidating. So if you look at mortgage and real estate websites, a lot of the time they'll leverage in our world what we call surveys over a very long form to fill this out. So then phone number, you can see I just was putting in fake information. You can see here they had all of it selected. So that's like a button kind of selector there. And then notes. In that case, with this is like just being able to type it, and then you press enter. And I would imagine if I press enter, I'd probably get an email from True North Mortgage. I didn't go that far, but essentially, if we go back here, that's what you would want to rebuild. So you go on your element side and you're like, okay, you go down, you go, I need a title. Okay. And then I really want to know what their name is. So you start to decide on what those elements are. So typically I suggest when you're doing a survey, the contact information usually is on the last page, because if the person has taken the time to fill out, let's say 4 pages, they're probably going to fill out their information and then send it to you, right? But usually if it starts with, there's less conversion if it starts with their first name, last name, and all that kind of stuff. More if they think they're taking a quiz, it's like higher likelihood of converting. So you just kind of work through that. You can maybe put, you want the website on this one. You can put more than one field, right? And then, I would try to keep it short though. Like if it starts to extend where all of a sudden this page starts to stretch out. It doesn't like this. See how it's getting longer? Then I would say if you're getting to that point, break it up. Put it on a different page at this point, okay? So you can have as many pages as you want. And you can also say, okay, if they say they're in a certain, this is an easier one, drop down. This is called conditional logic. You click on this drop down and you can actually pick what happens if they choose option 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can say skip to page 3. If they say they're a first-time home buyer, I want to ask how they have their savings. Is it personal savings? Is it a down payment? But if they're saying that they already own a home, you can ask them if they have a home equity or whatever. So what's nice about surveys is you can actually make the logic where they say, okay, if they choose a certain thing, I want XYZ to happen. So it's a little bit more complex, but that is an excellent use case. Like, let's just say a pre-approval or a pre-qualification on a website would be a good use case where they say they're from Ontario and then they're a first-time home buyer. You would ask them different questions. If they say they have a rental property, then you can have a different one. You can skip like 4 pages if you want, right? So the user's only ever seeing what really applies to them, if that makes sense. Okay, so now typically these surveys, if we go preview, I don't think there's, so you can see this one has a next button. So I'm not going to fill it all out, but as I fill it out, they would click next, 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 and then submit. And you can make this one aesthetically like match your brand as well. So from here, you can find submissions here as well. Okay, so if you created your form, you can go back to submissions and check that out. Another place too is once you're in this sites and you're in forms, there's a submissions drop down and a submissions drop down. So if you're looking for it, you can do that. But then again, in a different workshop, maybe what we'll do is train you guys on what you would do if you had a form submission. We obviously encourage automations to trigger from that form. So that's it for today. Peter, what do you think of all my note takers joining the call?
You know, today, every time I join these things, even if I think, well, I already know that, I learned something. So
oh, good.
Today I didn't know you could do an actual signature field, and I didn't realize there was a notification section on the side for a backup kind of for forms, which is great. So fabulous. Now I've lost my Wi-Fi. I'm kind of looking at you on my cell phone here. I can't check something simple. So I walked away for a second. So if you're starting to do a form and it looks like it's getting long, I missed whether you can convert that to a survey or whether you actually just scrap that and go to surveys and start a survey.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. You scrap the form and go. That would be nice. It would be nice if you could do that, but I don't, to my knowledge, you cannot.
No, it's easy enough. I just wondered because I missed it.
Yeah.